Yeah, man, it's a great afternoon. So I'm out for another walk. So let's have a conversation. So we're going to go back in time, man. There was a significant event that occurred, that kind of set a lot of things in motion, right? And from there, we're going to build, okay? We're going to build the conversation. So what was that significant event that occurred that really triggered this chain reaction that we're seeing today? Well, for the first, I wouldn't say it was the first time, but, we had literally frozen the assets of another sovereign nation's central bank, and I don't know about you, but to me, that's something that's very, very significant, okay? And we're going to talk about why, and what was the repercussions of that, the consequences, right? So let's take a step back and think about this. Imagine, you're a country, you do a lot of trade with the United States, all right? You're taking in dollars, you're buying US Treasury bonds, to manage your US dollar reserves. And then all of a sudden, you see the United States do a jack move, right? And they not only do a jack move on another sovereign nation, but on a pretty powerful one, okay? Russia is no slouch, okay? Big jack move. So now you got to think like, man, they could do that to them. They could do that to me. If I have a disagreement with the position of the United States, they could just freeze my money. They can go after my citizens and take all their stuff. That's pretty significant, man, if you really think about it, right? And so the weaponization of the US financial system is literally the linchpin that is leading to the total destruction of the US dollar reserve currency status, okay? And there's huge implications behind that, right? And so Ukraine has a part in this, but it's just a symptom, right? Because the US is trying to do what it can, through its US military to preserve that status. But I think it's too late, man. Because if you're a foreign country and you just watch them freeze the assets of another country's central bank and try to cripple their economy, you got to eliminate that risk for yourself. And the only way that you can do that is by getting out of the dollar. You got to get out of it. You can't stay in it because if you do and you continue to use it, well, guess what? You are susceptible to the same treatment that Russia just got, right? And so you can see the consequences, right? You see these trade agreements where countries are now starting to trade in their own currencies. It's happening. The usage of the dollar is on decline, right? And so how do you entice people to stay in this system, right? You have to raise interest rates, right? For years, they have not been paying anything on these bonds. And, they just been sucking it up, man. Selling their goods, making lots of wealth. They had to park the wealth somewhere, and so they don't want to keep dollars because, cash is trash. So they buy US Treasury bonds, right? Because they're still doing a lot of transactions, including oil and other commodities in US dollars, right? So, they have to have dollar reserves in order to maintain that. So looking at what's going on today, Russia had to accelerate its plans, right? So one thing that was significant, which I never thought I would see happen, was they told people, look, you want what I got to sell, you got to use my currency to buy it. And if you don't want to do that, then guess what? You don't get it, right? And there was a few European countries that balked at it, said, we're not going to do that, man. You're going to take what we give you, right? Well, they cut their ass off. They didn't believe fat meat was greasy. You know what I'm saying? And, once they made an example of a few people, hey, they're like, okay, we're going to do it. And then now you look at these agreements that China has with Saudi Arabia. You look at the agreements with Brazil. This is just the beginning, right? And so, in order to keep people in the system, they got to pay something. They're not going to stay in it for free. So they got to raise interest rates, man. Now, the distraction is they want you to think that, oh, it's because, the economy's doing so well and, it's a shortage. Everybody's buying up stuff and, prices are just going through the roof. No, that's not it, man. You got to really take a step back and look at over the last few years what's been going on. All the free money they gave out, debasing the currency, wasn't backed by nothing. You got all this money going over to shore up, Ukraine, to keep them fighting when having that money come back here into the military industrial complex. But hey, if you really look at what's going on, it has nothing to do with the strength of the U.S. economy, but it has everything to do with foreign countries and their U.S. dollar reserves, right? Now, these countries, they're basically saying, you got to give us something, man. You want us to stay in the game? You got to give us some juice, man. We're not going to be doing this for free, you know what I'm saying? And some countries don't care. They're just like, you know what? We're going to go ahead and we're going to switch over. That's exactly what we're going to do. Russia was able to do it. They got people doing it, so why can't we do it? Matter of fact, that creates additional security for us because it props up our currency, makes us look good, right? And so, when you really think about it, corporations, man, they've been getting over for decades, taking advantage of cheap labor, right? And so a lot of shuffling going on. But you have to understand something, man. The market monkeys are out there trying to tell you otherwise, that, hey, the situation's going to change in the second half. The Fed's going to reduce rates because we're going to go into a recession. People are not going to have jobs. Yeah, they're trying to crash the economy, but is it really for the reason that you think it is? Do you think they're really trying to crash the economy, because people are buying too much stuff? Or do you think they're trying to crash the economy as a message to these other countries that do a lot of business with us, saying, you know what, we'll cut you off one way or another if you don't stay in the system? See, a lot of people, they're not really thinking of it from that angle. I am. I'm looking at it that way. I'm wondering if you're looking at it that way, and so it's like we're being held hostage, and then you can see the inflation is everywhere, Look at the spread to buy physical metal. It's crazy, man. I mean, that is high. Then look at housing. You can't afford to buy a house, And so real wages are starting to fall back and decline. And then, you still got stuff going on in the food supply. So they want you to believe all this stuff is, demand driven, but it's not, man. It's not. There's basically a reshuffle of the financial system. A new one's been born. And so while we're in the early stages, you have to recognize that. You got to be able to look through the noise and understand that the clock is accelerating now. And so now's the time to really sit back and think about, what should I really be doing? Do I continue doing what I'm doing, or is it time to accelerate my plans to prepare? It's going to be a lot of opportunity for a lot of people, but it just depends on what your situation is, right? So, think about commercial real estate. I'm going to have, some videos about that to talk about commercial real estate, but, that's a canary in the coal mine that's singing right now. And when that shoe drop, it's going to be a big one. But I don't think that their rates are going to go down, man. I think rates are going to continue to climb. And while they might teeter back and forth here and there, until this whole situation gets resolved with the financial system, we don't know what's going to happen, right? But what I can say is we're not going to go back to the way that things used to be. That's not going to happen. So share your thoughts, man. Tell me what you think, man. Do you think that rates are going to go down in the second half? Or do you think that this is just the beginning of the end?